John Donahue.
Present.
Susan Falcoff.
Present.
Andrew Pinellas.
Present.
Cecilia Link.
Present.
Anthony Palumbo.
Present.
Vincent Picciarelli.
Present.
Kenneth Woodland.
Present.
Mark Sedaris.
Present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is examination of minutes. Can I get a motion on the minutes of January 11th?
Mr. President, I move that we adopt the minutes as written.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The next item is the public forum. First public forum. We have three speakers that have signed up, three people that have signed up. First one is Russ Arrico. I'll recognize Russ Arrico and remind everyone that public forum is limited to approximately 2 minutes. I will be a little bit flexible, but the rule is 2 minutes, and we do not respond to public forum. Please.
Mr. President, distinguished councilors. Well, first of all, I'm Russ Arrico from Fayette Street. Most people in the road know that by now. Anyway, Mr. President, distinguished councilors, here we go again with forced snow shoveling. In the past, the council has come to the realization that forced shoveling creates more problems than it solves. It is better to encourage shoveling of sidewalks as a neighborly thing to do, and again, to look at other avenues instead of forced shoveling. At the last committee meeting that forced shoveling was discussed, I requested that the councilor withdraw his proposal. His response was, "Go sit down." Fortunately, at least I wasn't thrown out of the building. Tonight is the time to put this issue of forced shoveling to bed. And I would appreciate it if this council would do this tonight, so this issue doesn't come up over and over and over again. Thank you.
Pat Gold.
Pat Gold, Dove Street, and the Council on Aging. Fact, it snows in Watertown in the winter. Fact, clearing snow from sidewalks is everyone's problem, not just seniors. Why do you people think this only affects seniors? It is an indication you really don't understand the extent of the problem and are passing the buck. In trying to solve the problem for one group, you may find you're making it difficult for others. A counselor came to the senior center and told our 3-person staff it's our responsibility to approach the school department and find students to shovel snow for seniors. The Council on Aging / Senior Center addresses many problems and needs of the aging population. Snow removal is a town-wide problem affecting all the residents of Watertown. Therefore, it is your job to find and develop a list of shovelers for all residents who require assistance. Don't pass the buck to the senior center. For many years, the center maintained a small list of persons and contractors who were willing for a small charge to help seniors, but due to aging, illness, etc., we no longer have people available. Have you ever told your children to go out and shovel your neighbor's sidewalks after they shovel yours? What was the result? We hear this discussion year after year. It is not a new one. Each year, the council allows the public and the council to voice their concerns and then shoves the problem off to a subcommittee. It comes to the perennial conclusion, let the senior center handle it. Then they pass the buck to us. Well, no thank you. You find the solution and you find the shovelers. Thank you.
Bert Greenberg.
Good evening. Bert Greenberg, Duff Street. Where are my sympathies? I believe that everything our government can logically do to bring as much parity as can be achieved for the disabled, or more correctly, those with limitations, should be done. That being said, I don't believe anyone in this room would be so insensitive as to want to see a snow removal ordinance that doesn't solve the problem, but only shifts a burden to another group of people. As we grow older, the aging process brings about unwanted limitations. Some of these limitations may be physical, perhaps financial, and perhaps anxiety for those who may already be more brittle than society as a whole. Do you want to add to their uncertainty? Also not to be forgotten, should not be forgotten, are a large number of people that can't or should not do snow removal because of medical conditions, heart, vascular, stroke. That group of people may not be seniors. They could be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, etc. Their problems are very real. It is a long-standing problem that has defied revolution. That's probably good. Defied resolution, even though there is sympathy for those in need. Perhaps you are stuck on previous approaches and can't see another path. I have often thought of a different approach. I would be willing to meet with the Commission on Disabilities to explain what won't work and why it won't work, and to lay out another path that may be more productive. Thank you.
Thank you. Normally, we have sign-ups, but I'm going to allow you to get up and speak. Thank you.
Will people be allowed to speak when number 8 comes out?
No. It's not a public hearing.
I assumed that's why I was waiting, so I didn't sign. I'm sorry. And I didn't prepare a speech. Okay. I just want to make it very clear. This is not about elderly people. It's not about people with disabilities, the snow ordinance. It's about everybody. It's about people pushing their children. It's about people of all ages falling. And I just don't understand why Watertown seems to be resistant to almost everything sometimes. I served on the council a few years ago, and I left part because I was very frustrated by the inability to address simple problems. Other communities have addressed this. It's not a perfect solution, but to do nothing? I mean, when the snow falls in Watertown, the whole streets are impassable. You have to walk on the street. I remember the winter 2-3 years ago, every day I would walk the dogs and other things, and I have to go on the street on Fayette Street, where Mr. Rico lives. It was an awful street. The whole street wasn't shoveled. The thing about old people not being able to shovel, I'm 70, my neighbor across the street is 80, we shovel our sidewalks. This has nothing to do with age. It's people, young people who are irresponsible and don't care very much about the community. And I think it's your responsibility, not the Council on Aging, not the Commission on Disability, it's your responsibility to think of this as a problem for the whole community. Other communities have addressed it. They're not perfect, but they're doing something. To sit there every year and do nothing, I think it's embarrassing. I'm sorry I wasn't ready for a speech, but this is what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Normally, again, we have people sign up to speak. I will allow one more person. Please. That's what...
Thank you. I apologize.
Fine.
I wasn't aware of that.
No problem.
I'm here actually to speak on something other than
That's
the
fine.
snow.
No problem.
My name is Nancy Walsh O'Leary, and I live on School Street. And I'm here tonight as a member of the School Street Advocate Group. This group was established in response to the proposed plans to widen School Street at the corner of School Street and Belmont Street as part of the Trapello Road Belmont Street Corridor project. This plan requires a significant amount of open space and mature trees provided by the Davenport Delta, which sits on that corner, to be eliminated. The residents of School Street see no benefit from these plans, and they adamantly oppose them for the following reasons. The creation of an additional lane will only bring more traffic onto School Street, a street that is already heavily trafficked and is used by many to cut through to other towns and communities. A designated left turn lane will encourage increased speed and cause safety hazards, as motorists will avoid waiting their turn to enter this lane and instead cross over yellow lines into oncoming traffic. This will increase the possibility of head-on collisions. The loss of open space taken from the Davenport Delta and the destruction of several mature trees will severely alter the appearance, the enjoyment, and the charm of our neighborhood, and ultimately decrease the value of our properties. The use of the Davenport Delta for the construction of a street and a new MBTA bus stop and shelter is in violation of the deed for this land, which was signed over to the town and accepted by Watertown in 1858 by Charles Davenport, a generous and successful man in Watertown history. The deed clearly states that the land is to be used forever as a common, and that it is never to be built upon. The Davenport Delta was also voted in by the Watertown Park Commission in 1902 to be accepted as a public park and to be protected and enjoyed by all residents of Watertown. The protection of the Davenport Delta from the proposed changes is supported by the following Watertown groups: the School Street Advocate Group, the Conservation Commission, the Historical Commission, the Historical Society, the East End Neighborhood Group, and a petition signed by 70 School Street residents. I have emailed to all of you or placed in your town office mailboxes letters sent by these groups in opposition to these proposed plans. The letters also support the protection of the Davenport Delta and the very valuable open space that it provides to the town. We ask that you read and consider these letters. We appreciate any support that you may offer and encourage you to communicate your support to the town manager and the Traffic Commission. We plan to continue to work to protect our neighborhood and the wonderful history that it holds and blesses to Watertown. We're eager to answer any questions you may have had regarding our opposition to the proposed plans, and we look forward to sharing with you the wonderful history and generosity of Charles Davenport, an important person in the Watertown history. We have been, and we hope to continue to, work with the Traffic Commission to make productive changes to calm traffic on School Street, but without taking away valuable historic open space. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is President's Report. I don't really have a report other than to say that over the last few meetings, be it council meetings and school committee meetings, I've received numerous texts, emails, and phone calls about the lack of being able to watch these public meetings. I did speak to the executive director of Watertown Cable Access, and I will be asking the town council clerk to get in touch with the Cable Access Board and be putting them on the agenda for a public discussion at the next council meeting, because I think the residents of this community deserve a whole lot better public meeting access than what we've been getting. And I'm sure a number of you have had phone calls, and I've spoken to a few of you who have. So I think if we would bring them here, we can have a nice discussion and we can express our opinions, and they can tell us what they're doing to rectify the situation. So that's all I have for President's Report. And the next item is a public hearing and vote. And it's a public hearing and vote on a proposed ordinance. I'm sorry, I missed it. Ooh, proclamations. I missed it because I thought she was going to be here. I have a proclamation that I want to present, that's going to be presented to Anna Kuwabara, and I will read it. It's whereas Anna Kuwabara served as Library Board trustee from August 5th, 2008 to January 31st, 2012. And whereas Ms. Kuwabara was very involved with the library's long-range plan and was active in the advocacy of the library by reaching out to community organizations. And whereas Ms. Kuwabara brought her professional and business background to strengthen and offer keen ideas to benefit the library and its patrons. And whereas Ms. Kuwabara and her husband Craig are relocating to St. Louis, where Anna will be the business manager for the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council of the city known as the Town of Watertown hereby extends its appreciation to Ms. Kuwabara, who served with pride and distinction. On behalf of the community, the Town Council wishes her all the best in St. Louis. And Anna was appointed to fill a vacancy by the death of a former library trustee, and she's done a great job for the library, and we're going to miss her. Her work has taken her out of the town. So can I get a motion on the proclamation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Now back to where I was before. 7A is a public hearing and vote on a proposed ordinance amending the fiscal year 2012 compensation of the town manager. And I just want to read something that I read previously. The town manager assumed office in 1993 and is in his 19th year serving the community in this capacity and is in his 35th year of employment with the town of Watertown. Having served as a councilor at large for 13 years, I've always thought the manager to be a very hard and diligent worker. Since becoming council president on January 2010 and working closer with Mr. Driscoll, I'm impressed with the way he runs our town. We have been well served by the manager, who has guided the town through some of the most difficult financial times we have faced in generations. I'm very pleased the Honorable Town Council and the town manager have agreed on an extension of the employment agreement to June 30th, 2014. And what we're doing tonight is we had a first reading on January 11th, and this is how we have to do we have to do this public hearing this evening so that we can have the ordinance which amends the town manager's compensation. And the town manager's compensation for 3 fiscal years we're going to be fiscal year 2010, a 0% increase, fiscal year 2011, a 0% increase, and fiscal year 2012, a 2.5% increase. So I now open it up, since this is a public hearing, for any member of the public that wishes to be heard. Seeing none, I close the public hearing, and I now open it up to the council. Any comments? Councilor Donahue.
Mr. President, thank you. I think the contract that we've ratified here and brought to the full public is a very important step for the council. A couple years ago, we voted unanimously to provide 2 fiscal zeros to the employees of this town to save jobs and to be fiscally responsible, and I think that shows that in this contract. And I think we're very fortunate right now under the leadership of the town manager that our town is in a fiscally conservative and safe area, and that we are not facing any potential overrides. And for that, I would like to thank the town manager and his staff for their diligence in their budgets. Thank you.
Vice President Corbett.
Mr. President, I'd just like to add that the performance review that we did was a positive performance review. And I agree with Councilor Donahue that the 2 years of 0% increase is consistent with what we've done with other employees, and also this current fiscal year 2012, the 2.5% increase is consistent with what we've done with the other contracts that we've settled. So I think the manager deserves to be treated equally with that.
Any other comments?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'm a big believer treating our employees well and fairly. Certainly, Mr. Driscoll is one of our town council's most important employees, and I think he's doing a good job for the town. He's received a favorable, very favorable performance review, and I think this compensation is fair. It fits the plan that we've agreed to proceed with all the other town employees of 2 years of no increase and 1 year of 2.5% increase. And Mr. Driscoll, is his salary, the salary of the Watertown town manager, is in line with what we've looked at for comparative salaries for other town managers for our peer communities. So I'm very satisfied with this, and I support this ordinance. Thank you.
Any other comments? Can I get a motion on the ordinance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Jim Donahue?
Yes.
Susan Falcon?
Yes.
Andy Canellis?
Yes.
Cecilia Lang?
Yes.
Anthony Palumbo?
Yes.
Vincent Picciarelli?
Yes.
Kelly Woodland?
Yes.
Steve Corbett?
Yes.
Mark Sedera?
Yes. Thank you. And now, under new business, we have to have a transfer, and I put it under new business because it is new business for us. If the ordinance didn't pass, we wouldn't be taking this up. So I'm going to ask Mr. Tracy, who I requested to get the appropriate paperwork to the council for the transfer.
Mr. President, members of the Town Council, what I just passed out at the request of the Council President is the transfer order that would transfer from the town fiscal year 12 Town Council reserve account of in the amount of $3,617 to the town manager full-time salary account, and as I normally do, the second document that was attached to the transfer is the reserve fund activity for the current fiscal year with the proposed transfer that's in front of you of $3,617.
Is there any questions of Mr. Tracy? Seeing none, can I get a motion on the transfer?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Susan Falcon?
Yes.
Andy Canellis?
Yes.
Cecilia Lang? Yes. Anthony Palumbo?
Yes.
Vincent Picciarelli?
Yes.
Kenneth Woodland?
Yes.
Steve Corbett? Steve?
Yes.
John Donahue?
Yes.
And Mark Sedera?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mr. Manager, and thank you for your continued service to our community. The next item is 8B, which is a discussion on the snow ordinance, and this is listed on the agenda as a discussion because this came, and I'm going to ask Vice President Corbett to help me with this. Yes.
Mr. President, under new business, just wanted to bring up a referral about the 558 bus line if possible.
Okay, we'll do that
After.
okay. This came out of a Public Works Subcommittee that we had back in December, and we wanted to talk about the council and wanted to see if, rather than spend a lot of time developing an ordinance that wouldn't pass, if the council would entertain an ordinance and then send it back to subcommittee for discussion if it did pass. So I'm going to ask Vice President Corbett to give us some of the background, and I appreciate his help on this.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to just recap some of the background, kind of fill people in on how this issue got to where it is here today and why I wanted to bring it forward. First of all, the issue that we're considering is whether or not we should establish a policy that requires all property owners to clear their sidewalks, for the sidewalks abutting their property of snow. We already have an ordinance in the commercial areas that require commercial owners to clear their sidewalks. So this would extend this to the residential districts. By way of background, this issue has been discussed over the years at several different forums, right? But it has never been brought to the council and voted directly on by the council. And this is what I wanted to have happen tonight. About a year ago, last winter, the Commission on Disability discussed this issue, and as a member of that commission, I was requested to bring it forward to the council. The council then referred it to the Committee on Public Works, which discussed it and then decided to meet jointly with the Commission on Disability. At that point, it was discussed further. Subsequent to that joint meeting, the Commission formed an ad hoc subcommittee to develop a recommendation for the town. And I'd like to read the statement that they came up with and referred to the council, and they presented some months ago, but I'd like to read it just to refresh everyone's memory. This is the recommendation from the Commission on Disability to the council. Currently, Watertown has ordinances for removal of snow and ice by private persons in the business district, but no such ordinance exists for the residential district. Thus, the Watertown Commission on Disability is recommending an additional ordinance be enacted to ensure that snow is removed and cleared away from residential sidewalks by private persons so the disabled, elderly, children, and other citizens can safely travel throughout the city. The New England region is assured to have snow accumulation each winter, and the new ordinance will ensure all citizens will assist in making Watertown neighborhoods more accessible for people with disabilities by clearing snow and ice from the portion of the sidewalk which abuts any side of their real estate. Moreover, the Commission on Disability believes that Watertown should serve as an exemplary model of a conscientious community that values full access for all its citizens by enacting a residential snow and ice removal ordinance. So that statement was made and referred to the council, and I presented it several months ago. At that point, the council referred it once again to the Committee on Public Works for further consideration. At that point, I drafted a suggested policy and procedure covering this issue for discussion purposes at the Committee on Public Works. The meeting was well attended. There were numerous comments from the public and some elected officials, and quite frankly, much of it was opposed to the proposed policy. The committee then decided to recommend to the council that it vote on whether or not to establish such a policy, should residents be required to clear the sidewalks of snow. If this was approved, it would be sent back to committee to develop the specifics of an ordinance, such as the time frame, such as the width of the path that need to be cleared, any fines involved, how you deal with piles of snow that accumulate or are caused by public plowing, any exemptions that should be granted, and many other details that you see. It did not make sense to debate all of those details unless there was a philosophic agreement that we should adopt some form of this policy. At this point, Mr. President, I'd just like to present some of the reasons why I feel we should adopt such a policy. First and foremost, the Watertown Commission on Disability has recommended that we do so. I think we should support our commission in the good work it does and what it stands for. Secondly, it is legal. Chapter 40U, Section 5 of Massachusetts General Laws very clearly gives municipalities the authority to adopt such a policy. Thirdly, the vast majority of people already voluntarily clear their sidewalks. I think it's only fair to them that the others be required to do so. A recent court decision has increased the potential for liability for property owners who don't exercise reasonable care by clearing the snow from their sidewalks. Fifth, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, has recently published a toolkit to assist communities in adopting snow clearing policies. This, I believe, is indicative of a general trend in this direction. Presently, there are 22 communities in the metropolitan Boston area that do require residential property owners to clear their sidewalks. 22. I see this as a reasonable partnership between the public and the private sector. The town constructs and maintains the sidewalk, while the property owner would assume responsibility for keeping it clear. After all, it's the property owner who benefits from the increase in property values due to the betterment and also it's the property owner who is the primary user of the sidewalk. This policy, I believe, is most appropriate in a densely settled, semi-urban community, such as Watertown, where many people walk and many people use public transportation. I believe it's a reasonable requirement of good citizenship, and it would promote safety. Finally, I'd just like to say, I know there are strong feelings on this issue, and I can appreciate that reasonable people can differ on it, but I do believe the people deserve an up or down vote on the issue.
Comments from the rest of the members of the council? Councilor Falcoff.
Thank you. I also have a statement that I'd like to read about this. I've certainly given this thought over the years, and I, at this point, oppose an ordinance, and here's my reasoning. Icy and snowy sidewalks are a hazard. They force pedestrians into the road. They present a nuisance to parents with strollers, bus commuters, wheelchair users, and senior citizens, among others. In a perfect world, I believe that the Public Works Department would plow every sidewalk in town and give clearing sidewalks as high a priority as road plowing. Since this is not economically feasible, I believe that all property owners should take responsibility for being sure that their sidewalks are cleared for the benefit of all. In the past, I have been a proponent of a residential ordinance as a means to this end. Last year, I changed my mind as I watched with interest as Newton residents worked very hard to pass a residential shoveling ordinance. They did pass one, but the issue was so contentious that it passed with a 2-year sunset provision and no penalty for failure to comply with the law. Furthermore, there is an exemption mechanism in Newton that is so broad that virtually anyone with the time to fill out the form and the willingness to disclose personal information such as income could potentially be exempt. Newton's experience caused me to rethink the value of an ordinance. In my opinion, passing laws with no intention of enforcement is poor policy. Here are some of the problems with enforcement. 1, is this a wise use of police time? 2, we do not do a good job enforcing the laws we already have regarding snow, requiring businesses to shovel and forbidding plow operators or shovelers from placing snow on sidewalks or in the street. 3, we want this law to protect those who are unable to shovel, such as the elderly and disabled, so do we want to require them to shovel? If we allow them an exemption, what are the criteria and who decides? The option to pay for shoveling is not realistic for many low-income homeowners. In Cambridge, if you request an exemption from shoveling, the town will plow your sidewalk. We do not have the staffing to make that happen here. Next, if you live at the end of a dead-end street, should you be subject to the same requirement as someone who lives on a well-traveled road? I've heard many pleas from people at the end of dead-end streets saying, really? And I think that that's a reasonable position. The Public Works Subcommittee has worked with the Public Works Department, who has instituted some more enlightened plowing practices, but still, there are areas, especially corners, where town contracted plows pile snow from the street into icy mountains that are impenetrable even by electric snow blowers. In spite of the newer practices, homeowners frequently also complain that no sooner do they shovel than the town plows throw the snow right back in the driveway or on the sidewalk. In some locations, there is literally no place to put the snow. And in other locations, the sidewalk is squeezed between a street and a high retaining wall, making shoveling a particularly strenuous endeavor. All this adds up to a policy which is difficult to enforce and unequal in the burden it places on citizens. Yet, the desire to make passable sidewalks is a valid goal. Educational efforts have had some effect, and residents have commented that compliance seems to be improving every year. I thank the police for including a message about helping your neighbor in weather-related press releases and robocalls. The Senior Center has posted a notice in the tab each week this winter asking people to help a neighbor and offering to add the names of willing shovelers to a list they will make available to those in need. Over the past several years, the Public Works Committee has recommended several additional steps to offer possible relief. These include additional coordination with high school students who could possibly gain community service credits for helping a neighbor, specific outreach to absentee landlords about the need for shoveling, continued work with plow contractors to improve practices and keep handicapped ramps accessible, increasing public works staffing so that plowing school and bus route sidewalks and clearing bus stops and handicapped ramps can be achieved in a more timely manner, and possibly offering discounts on snow blowers for neighborhood groups, possibly through a grant from the Watertown Community Foundation or similar organization. I'm sure there are other creative ideas to promote the importance of shoveling. As I wrote out these thoughts, it struck me that the Public Works Subcommittee has discussed this over and over, but in the spirit of buck passing, which I am hearing a lot of tonight, it would be nice to see more leadership from the town administration on this as well. Passable sidewalks is a public safety and quality of life issue that is worth all of our best efforts, but not an unenforceable law.
And Councilor Cornelis.
Thank you. I also echo the comments from my fellow councilors that certainly this issue has been discussed numerous occasions. I've spoken about this as a private citizen. I've also spoken about this as a councilor. I feel it's important that we do shovel. This is our community. We want it to be safe for all of us, for every resident, for every commuter, for every visitor to our community. But I find it very difficult to impose that on our residents. It should be voluntary. Last week we had minimal snow in Watertown, much to my delight. I walked my street, Keenan Street, walked to the mailbox in front of 705 Mount Auburn Street. I walked on the side of the road. Some residents had made attempts to shovel even the minimal snow. Others had not. Even the residents who had shoveled, then we talk about degree of shoveling. A little bit more snow falls, a little bit of thawing, a little bit of freezing again. It's difficult to maintain a clear sidewalk. Yes, we should be walking on the sidewalk, but I would find that this would be something, as Councilor Falcoff indicated, that would be almost impossible to enforce in a community such as Watertown. So I would oppose having mandatory shoveling. I think we should be encouraging our residents to shovel. We should have an education process. But certainly, once again, I will state that we should not mandate. Residents at the committee meeting submitted photographs. I wish the audience at home could see this. This is at the corner of Arlington Street and Clarendon Street. Really can't even tell where the fence line is, the property line is, and the sidewalk and the curb. It's next to impossible. There's no place to put the snow. A number of years ago, I had submitted my own photographs of a freshly cleared sidewalk where the street plow came by and actually pushed the snow up to the property line. I sent the photograph to DPW. That was as a private citizen. What was I to do with it? This has to be something that we need to work on as a community, but mandating it, I don't think, is appropriate at this point in time. And a few years ago, even the Tab and Press went around to all the town councilors and photographed our sidewalks to see, in fact, what type of work we had done as councilors. And I think we all did a pretty good job. So thank you, and I will not be supporting sending this to committee or mandating snow shoveling.
Any other comments? Councilor Palumbo.
I just want to clarify that the question on the table is to support the return of the proposal that Councilor Corbett made back to the committee to do what with?
To develop a snow ordinance.
Right. So that we're not passing an ordinance.
We're not. The vote that's being requested this evening is: do we want to continue down the path of developing a snow ordinance, which would be going back to Public Works and Rules and Ordinance for a subcommittee to develop that ordinance.
They would be directed to not have simply have a hearing, but to develop an ordinance.
Right.
Within the rules of
Correct.
ordinances and with the exceptions and so forth. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Picciarelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been on the Public Works Committee now for 4 years, and we've been discussing this for 4 years. And I do support the idea of abutting property owners shoveling town sidewalks. Because we live in an urban area with lots of vehicle traffic, it's important to have safe areas for pedestrians to walk, even more so in the winter when snow and ice conditions can increase the hazard for motor vehicles. Many big cities have snow shoveling ordinances, and as Councilor Corbett mentioned, 22 in the Metro Boston area alone. And Watertown will be on solid legal ground to enact a residential snow shoveling ordinance. I've been contacted by many people last month about this topic, both pro and con. Parents whose children walk to school and the many commuters who use public transportation are in favor of such an ordinance, because they bear the brunt of the challenge presented by homeowners who somehow find the time to shovel their driveways but not their sidewalks. On the other hand, are many older residents, many who do try to shovel to the best of their abilities, but who are afraid of being fined for not being able to adequately clean their sidewalks during a heavy snowfall, if they are not feeling well or if they're out of town. Any fair residential shoveling ordinance would require exemptions for those physically unable to shovel, as Councilor Falcoff had pointed out. And I believe the complexity and cost to the town of implementing this would be too burdensome at this time. We currently have 3 laws about snow and ice removal on sidewalks that are not being effectively enforced: requiring commercial property owners to clear abutting sidewalks, prohibiting the placement of snow from clearing a driveway on the sidewalk without clearing a 36-inch wide path on the sidewalk, and prohibiting the placing of snow on a public street or sidewalk by a private snowplow operator. I would rather see the town more aggressively enforce these 3 existing laws than pass a new law that we're not going to have the resources to enforce. It's been my experience that a large majority of residents in Watertown make a good faith effort to shovel their sidewalks, driven not by the threat of a penalty of law, but because of their sense of civic duty. But there are those who do not shovel, or even worse, pile snow from their driveways onto the sidewalk, creating hazards for pedestrians. It is my belief that we have not effectively used the tools that we have today to get sidewalks cleared: public education and the enforcement of our existing laws. And at this time, I would prefer we renew our efforts with education and enforcement instead of passing a new law. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Donahue.
Mr. President, I personally, as a resident and a business owner, I deal with both situations of having to clear snow out. But I want to talk and address the personal attacks that Councilor Corbett received over the past couple weeks about bringing this ordinance forward. I think Councilor Corbett has done a tremendous job for this community, and there's no reason why a personal attack from Mr. Corbett bringing this ordinance forward as a member of the disabilities group, it's uncalled for and unacceptable by the people that feel that Councilor Corbett is trying to enact slavery, as it was said in multiple emails. Okay? Councilor Corbett has done a great job. This ordinance, I don't support it. I think Councilor Picciarelli is dead on. And we do have 3 other laws in the books that we need to enforce first before we move forward with a 4th one. But I think the residents of this community should understand that Steve Corbett does a tremendous job for every resident, and bringing this forward is supporting every resident. Okay, I personally can't vote for it to move forward to DPW because I would like to see the other 3 ordinances enforced first. But personal attacks to any councilor for bringing forward information is uncalled for. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other comments? I just want to comment that, again, I appreciate the efforts of Councilor Corbett. He is the council liaison on the Commission on Disability, and Mr. Donahue is here, Mr. Liazos is here, who are members of that commission also. And I believe that, you know, Councilor Corbett is doing his duty to the committee that he serves. And they requested this. because it's difficult for them to get around, and I understand that. And I understand the difficulties we face as a community when people don't shovel their sidewalks, for the people that are walking, for the parents that are taking their kids to school, for the commuters, for everyone. This is not easy. But I also have a problem enacting an ordinance, and I've sat here before, and I want to disagree with Councilor Corbett. The council has voted against a snow ordinance at least twice in the past, and I've had the opportunity at least twice to be part of that vote. And I didn't support it then, and I'm not going to support it now. A lot of people have pointed out the key issues here, and the major issue for me is we have current laws that we can't enforce. And we can't enforce them because we don't have the wherewithal to do that. As someone stated earlier, is that what we're going to have our police department doing all night long? We don't have the money to add officers during a snowstorm to give tickets. On Saturday afternoon, we all shoveled our sidewalks. And I've spoken to my neighbor next door before. My sidewalk was clean. I went to pull my cars in the driveway at the end of the evening, and his snowplow person came right down his driveway, put a small pile of snow on my sidewalk that I had just cleared, and the snow went into the street. If we can't enforce what we have, how can we add to the burden? So I really thank everybody and for allowing this discussion to go forward. I will not be supporting an ordinance at this time, but I'm sympathetic to those that want to have it. But I think we, as a town, administration, people that work here, we need to do a better job enforcing what we have to show that we are trying to do something to help the citizens. And if we can enforce these laws, I think it will be better for everybody. I'd like to get a motion on this ordinance. Oh, Council Woodland, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No problem. I noticed that in the conversation, what a lot of people have brought up is the purpose of a law. And it's been kind of along the theme of a remedy or a punishment if it's broken. But I think the purpose of a law is to shape societal norm, to shape an expectation of your community. It's not only about finding someone to enforce it and have the restitution, but it's about finding what sort of standards and behaviors are acceptable in a community. And I think the main thing that everyone has highlighted, the common thread of everyone's comments, has been there's a passion and a necessity for change, but in light of public safety and preservation of life issues. I know that there would be some discrepancies in if the exceptions were too broad, or if how much extra funding would be needed to officially enforce this to the degree that the council and the town would like to see. But I think that if your main issue is public safety, then that amount of money, shouldn't be the #1 issue. That the main issue should be that safety. So, in light of that, I would be in support of this ordinance.
Any other comments? Vice President Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt an ordinance, adopt a policy and send it back to committee to be fleshed out. That would require all property owners to clear their sidewalks from snow.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Angie Canales?
No.
Cecilia Link?
No.
Anthony Palumbo?
No.
Vincent Picciarelli?
No.
Kenneth Woodland?
Yes.
Steve Corbett?
Yes.
John Donahue?
No.
Susan Falcoff?
No.
And Mark Sedaris?
No.
Doesn't pass.
Thank you. I know a couple of people have asked for new business. First, I want to recognize Councilor Donahue.
Mr. President, I want to apologize. I thought the snow ordinance was his own agenda item. I was reading Mr. Tracy's letters. Mr. President, I would like the Subcommittee on State, Federal, and Regional Government has set a subcommittee meeting for January 31st. I would like to also refer to that. What was brought up as a joint referral earlier is the potential change of the bus route 558 in Watertown. So I would just like to make sure that would be added to their agenda on the 31st of January. Okay. And I also provided additional information to Valerie to pass out to the full council and to our state representatives.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion?
I'll second that, his motion.
Okay.
I'd just like to request an amendment that it be a joint, refer to the joint committee, the two committees, as the original issue was referred to, joint committees of state and regional government and then economic development and planning for that date.
Okay. As long as that date works, Councilor Canellis has already scheduled that date, so if we can...
It works for myself, it works for Councilor Donahue.
Councilor Canellis has...
Councilor Falcoff. Does that work for you? Okay.
Councilor Canellis.
Thank you. Originally, it was sent to the Joint Committee November the 22nd, and Councilor Corbett and I spoke the beginning of December, and Councilor suggested that we wait until January for the Joint Committee meeting. I'd like to know how long our committee would like to spend on the initial topic and then schedule a specific time for the Joint Committee to start, since the item on the original agenda for the 31st was sent to one committee.
Could we, I'm sorry.
So,
Could we just research that, Mr. President? That's all I'm saying. I believe the original issue was sent to joint committee.
It was sent to a joint committee. It was definitely sent to a joint committee. Either you can have the same meeting, or you're going to have to schedule another meeting as a dual subcommittee, is what the point is here. And Councilor Canellis is trying to ask, how long is her first item that's already been scheduled going to take in order to take up the second item?
Because if I may, because the item that we scheduled was sent to one committee.
Right.
So that was to discuss MBTA route changes and fare increases.
Right.
That was one committee.
And if, what we're trying to get a sense of, if this is going to take an hour, half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you could schedule a second subcommittee, which is doing the work, this referral will be to the dual subcommittee. I'm just not sure how long the first subcommittee is going to be working on their issue. Councilor Falcoff and then Councilor Palumbo.
Thank you.
well, it just might make more sense to reverse it. Why not have the joint meeting first and then send the other people home? Because then we don't have to either keep them waiting or have an intermission.
My suggestion is we can have the referral, and we'll let the chairs of the subcommittee work out the details. Does that work?
That's fine, and we'll have the council clerk reschedule accordingly.
Councilor Palumbo.
Actually, I'm a little, don't agree with that, though. It's fine. As a member of the Committee on State, Federal, and Regional Government, this issue about fares is going to take some discussion. If you've been following, and I'm sure everybody has, in the Globe and other media outlets, the packed audiences about in Newton, for example, around this. It's huge. And there are significant discussions about what way to go. Cut services, increase fares, or cut services less, increase fares more. And I think the committee has a responsibility to hear the residents and the MBTA officials, and then if they so deem it necessary, to draft a letter or draft a statement that they can bring back to this council to decide whether they support what they do support or don't support. So I'm not interested in trying to squeeze in another issue that I'm not sure, and I apologize for not knowing exactly what it relates to this, but I do know that the fare increase and the service cuts is going to take a significant amount of time and energy.
Okay, Councilor Donahue.
I have to agree with Councilor Palumbo there. I think the situation for the bus route of 558 would be 15 minutes of discussion prior to the meeting. I think if we maybe could, as you said, Mr. President, have the two chairs discuss maybe rescheduling at 6:45 to discuss the 558 bus change, and then continue with the advertised at 7 o'clock for the fare increase, because I do believe that it's going to be a very well-attended meeting.
That's fine. We have a motion, and that's what I think we should let the chairs figure out.
I would defer to the two chairs.
We have a motion and a second to refer to the dual subcommittee the bus route changes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The chairs will figure out what time they're going to meet. I want to recognize Councilor Woodland for new business.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to refer to the Subcommittee on Public Works, a proposal for an Adopt a Spot, Adopt an Island program for Watertown for a potential revenue saving and largely for a beautification environmental initiative.
Okay, can I get a second to that?
Second, please.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Councilor Link is the chair of that committee. Councilor Falcoff.
Yes, I would like to ask the council to consider sending a letter in support of keeping the Davenport Delta. And I guess I haven't followed it closely enough. I know Mrs. O'Leary mentioned wanting our support to talk to the manager and the traffic commission. My impression is that this is really a mass highway issue and not a local issue. But I wonder if the council would consider writing a letter supporting their position to the state authorities.
As most of you know, I think on October 19th, Councilor Cornelis held a meeting here with the state officials, Public Works, and so on and so forth, to discuss this issue, and this is something that's been being worked on since then. So what I'd like to entertain is Councilor Falcoff has made a motion that we send a letter in support of maintaining the Davenport Delta as it is now. So if someone would like to make a second, we can discuss that.
I'd second that.
Okay. Discussion. Councilor Link.
This is an issue that has been discussed since this proposal was made to work on that street. There are ways to get around cutting into the Davenport Delta that have been looked at. So I think we have to strenuously urge Mass Highway to change their plans. There's no need to do what they're doing. They certainly haven't considered both the historical significance of the Delta as well as the importance of it to the local community.
Councilor Cornelis.
Thank you. So many of you know, as Council President Sedaris indicated, October the 19th, there was a meeting scheduled. It was an informational presentation to discuss the Belmont Street Chapello Road Corridor project. This issue goes back 3 years. It's a state and federally funded project paid for out of funds that are being tunneled through the town of Belmont. The Belmont consultant is the BSC group. BSC has actually put together the plans that are submitted to the state for approval. So these are not state plans, these are Belmont's plans that they are actually working through the state. It's a very difficult process. I think it's important that we review all aspects of the project. At the October the 19th meeting, the residents from School Street were not in attendance to discuss that particular part of the project. That's very unfortunate because we actually thought that everything had been resolved at that point in time. So I think we have to decide where correspondence should be sent, because since Belmont is the entity that's actually putting the plans together, putting pressure on the state or sending documents to the state, I don't think would actually be the appropriate avenue to pursue. Belmont is the nucleus at this point in time. And the Watertown Traffic Commission, excuse me, that is the recommending body to the town manager who eventually will sign off on any changes in Watertown, should actually be CC'd on any correspondence, because the Traffic Commission in Watertown will actually be making the recommendations to the town manager for any changes. And it's quite complicated, and I hope that we can actually come to an harmonious agreement so that the residents will retain their sense of neighborhood and community, and that the plans that were set forth by Mr. Davenport for the particular green space are adhered to.
Mr. Rich, I would like to ask you, if the council was to send a letter, who, if the town of Belmont, and we heard this at the meeting on October 19th, is responsible for this, how can the town of Watertown, I mean, do we send it to Belmont? Can you please help us with that portion? That's where...
I could try through you, Mr. President. It is my understanding that this is a Mass Highway or Mass DOT now project. It is being undertaken under the auspices of Belmont, and Belmont has presented it, but the way these projects are often undertaken is through an agreement with the Mass Department of Transportation, which hires the contractor and oversees the project with the design coming from the requesting community. We actually deal with these projects very frequently, and their growth and development, and sometimes their problems. And these projects are specifically overseen, funded by, and approved by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation under their regulations. So while the plans are sent to Belmont, all the approvals and the funding come from the Mass DOT. So in this case, it may make sense to send the letter to Mass DOT with a copy to Belmont, since it is ultimately the Mass DOT that approves the project. The Mass DOT would rely upon Belmont, but ultimately it becomes a Mass DOT project overseen by their regional staff and approved through their process. And I know the questions have arisen, and I know I've been in communication with the police chief as to the ability of certain entities to impact or take property, and I know that I'll be talking with the chief further about the implications of the Davenport Delta deed and the restrictions in that, and what that means. There are some significant issues in this, but certainly I've heard the communication, and I would encourage the communication to go to the Mass DOT, since that is ultimately the entity that will approve the project, but certainly copying it to the appropriate folks at Belmont so that they are also aware of the concerns of the town.
Councilor Palumbo.
Yeah, I appreciate the explanation. I also, however, think that it might be useful, because we've received a number of letters on this issue, as we all have. And I'm wondering if Councilor Canellis, who worked very hard to get that October meeting together, trying to bring in the Belmont folks and so forth, but I wonder if you would entertain that this be sent to the Committee on State, Federal, and Regional Government for another discussion on this issue, to give the folks on School Street and the Historical Commission and the Historical Society and others an opportunity to publicly explain the situation.
How does the council feel about that? Councilor Picciarelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. In concept, I support the protecting of the Davenport Delta as a deeded open space to the town of Watertown. I'm a little bit concerned, though, about what this letter would say in terms of, because there's several layers of problems. It's not just adding the left turn lane or full left turn lane that was going to be the full length of the Delta. There was some discussion about Belmont changing the design to eliminate the left turn lane, but giving advanced left turn timing for people turning left. So there was some engineering issues. There was some engineering issues related to the relocation of the bus stop to the Davenport Delta from the next corner over, and that would also require taking green space from the Delta, and the conflict that would cause with the bicycle at that intersection. So there's a lot of, in my mind, a lot of engineering issues that need to be resolved, and the town of Belmont agreed to look at it and come back to us with an alternative design, which we haven't seen yet. So I would just be concerned about, if we were to send a letter, what it would actually say. And if the letter just simply said that the council supports the concept of maintaining the open space at the Davenport Delta, that would be one thing, but that, I'm really concerned about the implications of the bus stop and the traffic signal and some of the other issues. So, and again, having that discussed at a committee meeting sounds perhaps better, and I would think that if we have that discussion, it would be helpful to have the town of Belmont and the Belmont engineers there to present their alternative design, which may in fact preserve the open space of the Delta and deal with the problem caused by the relocation of the bus stop. So I do support the idea, but I'm just concerned about the specifics and how to make that work. Thank you.
One of the things I do have a concern about is that this project is moving along and has gone, since October, has moved, I believe, close to the final design stage. And I don't know, you know, I can't speak for Belmont or anybody that's involved in the project, but whatever happens, I think this has got to happen pretty quickly. I want to first recognize Councilor Cornelis, who might be able to help with that, then I'll go to my left, to Councilor Falcoff.
Thank you. As Ms. O'Leary had indicated, or I actually indicated at the last town council meeting, there was a neighborhood meeting with the police chief, Chief DeVoe, Mr. Magoon, Mr. Mee, 4 residents, and myself, and I don't have the date in front of me. And at the last town council meeting, I indicated that I really felt that it was important that this process move along because Belmont is under time constraints with the state, and I didn't want anything that Watertown did or did not do to jeopardize this project that we really do want to see come to fruition. Chief DeVoe indicated at this small meeting that we had that he would be taking this under advisement at the February Traffic Commission meeting. And I questioned whether that would be within the time constraints that Belmont will be faced with. I did speak with Mr. Glenn Clancy from Belmont. He told me that February at this point in time seems to be fine as long as the recommendation will be done at that point in time and that Mr. Driscoll will be in fact signing off on the documentation shortly thereafter. And that would be the end of the process. So we're into the first week of February next week. So I think we have the month of February, and that is it. And I did speak with Mr. Miller, Al Miller, who is the project manager for Mass DOT, and he said to me that he could actually be the bad guy if folks really didn't want to sit down and discuss this. And I really don't want to see that happen. I think it's important that we all come to an agreement that's going to be win-win for everyone concerned.
Councilor Falcoff.
Well, this is really interesting. The first thing I want to say, in response to Councilor Piccirilli, what I would recommend at this point is simply, we don't need to approve or disapprove or weigh in on alternative designs. I just think we should write a letter and say, the town council of the city, of the city known as the town of Watertown, feels very strongly about preserving the Delta. And just to put additional pressure on Belmont to come up with an alternative. But what the town attorney said kind of shocked me. It sounds as though Belmont can apply to DOT for road projects, and I know that requires a public process, but it seems that they can just decide the project will involve parts of Watertown, and no public process has to take place in Watertown. So first of all, I want to see if that's true, and second, if that's okay with you, Mr. President. And second of all, I would like, following up on what Councilor Cornelis said, if there's an alternative design before the town manager signs it, I would like there to be a public meeting where it's presented to the citizens of Watertown.
I recognize Attorney Rich.
Thank you, through you, Mr. President. These projects are complex in nature when they involve roads that are actually under state supervision that run from one community to another. Obviously and clearly, one community has no authority over the ways and property of another community. There are only very rare instances where one community can take property another, acquire property another, or control property another. And in this case, I think what you're talking about is a design, again, that's approved by the Mass DOT. Mass DOT has a very strict regulatory process, but it's Mass DOT that oversees the design and may determine that there are additional requirements. The towns hire the engineers, the designers who do the designs. They are then approved by Mass DOT. Mass DOT may have asked Belmont, and I don't know the particulars of how this aspect of the project evolved, but it's very possible that Mass DOT, in exploring this, laid out what area it sought to have addressed based upon the requests of Belmont, and there is essentially a back-and-forth process, but ultimately it will be Mass DOT that approves that development, especially outside of the bounds of Belmont. Belmont cannot undertake work within the confines of the town of Watertown, although Belmont can certainly propose work that would then be approved by Mass DOT. The work is then undertaken by Mass DOT's contractors under contract with Mass DOT. So that's why it becomes a project designed by one community, but actually constructed by Mass DOT. So it would be the Mass DOT that would be doing the work within Watertown. It would not be Belmont doing work within Watertown.
That's what happened on Pleasant Street.
Could I do a little
That's
quick
exactly.
follow-up? But the question had to do with public process. I know if Belmont designs it, the Belmont public needs to be notified and there's hearings. It sounds like this Mass DOT project can affect Watertown without any requirement for a public process in Watertown. Is that correct?
And if I may, I unfortunately I don't have the regulations in front of me. There are public hearings and public notice. I am not certain of the extent of the public notice required of Mass DOT, but there is a requirement. It looks like the councilor may have a leg up on me on that. But there is a requirement for notice that should have been received in Watertown as well, because again, it's a project that crosses borders. There is a public notice requirement.
Councilor Lenk.
I would like to fully support sending the letter expeditiously and follow the leadership of our Historical Commission, which sent the letter to Secretary Sullivan. And I believe that time is of the essence. The neighborhood has done considerable work to look at the details of the Delta, to look how this would impact our neighborhood. It is not, again, up to us to come up with alternatives. It is merely to say that we do not approve of the taking of land from the Delta, and they need to find other ways to solve the traffic problems.
Councilor Canales.
Thank you. As a follow-up to the public process, this goes back to 2008. I do not have all the documentation. I was not prepared. I did not think we would be discussing Belmont Street, Trapello Road. There was a public hearing, 2008, that was published in the Watertown Tab and Press and the Belmont Citizen Herald and in the Waltham paper. That public hearing was undertaken by then Mass Highway, now Mass DOT. It was a very legal process. With a transcript that I had requested copies of, and it was only because of one of our own residents on Templeton Parkway, Mr. Harry Palmer, who was speaking with Mr. Glenn Clancy, who said, oh, by the way, Templeton Parkway is going to be made one way. Mr. Palmer did not know about that. Mr. Palmer called me. I, in turn, called Mr. Al Miller at Mass DOT, who indicated he was not authorized to have another public hearing. And hence, we had an informational presentation October the 19th. That's all that is required by Mass DOT. the one public hearing, and it was properly posted in the newspapers, so that's why we had the informational presentation. And that was posted to the best of our ability. Our own planning office, through Mr. Magoon, sent out 250 notices to residents along Belmont Street and specific to the Templeton Parkway area, not School Street. And this is just something that was undertaken because they felt it would be advantageous to do so, but there were no requirements to do that. And it's unfortunate that more residents on School Street were not aware of these specifics, but it was sent out to the best of our ability through phone calls and community networking.
Thank you, Councilor Canales. Councilor Palumbo.
Thank you, and thank you for everybody for the clarifications. You know, when something happens like this all of a sudden and people get wind of it or learn about it, they do turn to their representatives to see if they can do something about it. I mean, that's what would happen normally. And I know Councilor Canales has really done her homework and can, as you saw, explain to us why there has to be an informational meeting rather than a public hearing. I want to withdraw my suggestion then that it goes directly, that we delay this, and not delay it, but that we put it to the subcommittee. And I want to support the immediate action as proposed by Councilor Forkoff and followed by Councilor Link, that we send a letter that basically states fairly clearly, and we can reference our historical commission and we can reference others, that the town council, in responding to the wishes and the concerns of its residents who will be impacted directly by this, requests that that the historical and so forth be preserved around that particular delta. And I would think then we would copy that, have it written and copy it to our traffic commission. That'd be done in time to be sent. And I'm sorry, Councilor Canales, if I forget, when is the traffic commission meeting again?
Customarily, it's the last Wednesday of the month. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case.
I believe we therefore have time to draft a letter to and send it, and then it could go both to, as Attorney Rich said, to the DOT and as Councilor Link said, and then also to our own traffic commission. I support the two councilors' proposal.
Thank you, Councilor Palumbo. Councilor Picciarelli. Thank you. Just want a couple of quick things. This Belmont's designing this. They're doing it in cooperation with Watertown. It's not like they're doing it behind our back, and we've known about it. And ultimately, the town manager needs to sign off on it. Now, we have two town boards. We have the Conservation Commission and the Historical Commission, both opposing taking open space from the Davenport Delta. We have the Superintendent of Public Works actually supports the design with the adding of the left turn lane as proposed by Belmont, and has in fact worked with the Belmont Highway Department to design this. We're going to have a fourth party. The Traffic Commission has not weighed in on this. Usually when we do road projects in Watertown, these get referred to the Public Works Committee to provide policy guidance to the town manager and his departments on how to proceed. But because this project is being run in Belmont, that never happened, never went to the Public Works Committee. So the town council never provided any policy guidance. I think it's this is an opportunity for us to provide some policy guidance. But I would, again, caution that it be kept as brief as possible. I do not want to get into technical issues, and I think if we're going to send the town manager a policy directive, it would be just briefly to support the concept of retaining the open space that was deeded as the Davenport Delta. And I don't know, it may be, again, Mr. President, the town manager may want to just weigh in on the process of how we should proceed. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll recognize the manager.
I'll pass. No, I mean, again, Mr. President, back to Council Picciarelli and all the comments, and I know Ms. O'Leary spoke tonight. There's been a lot of communication sent from many of the Historical Commission, Historical Society. I know that, just repeating what Councilor Canales alluded to, there was the 4 residents, I think 4 residents, Chief DeVoe, Mr. Magoon, Superintendent Me, and Councilor Canales. I know that Chief DeVoe has received a lot of these letters, and then also is asking the town attorney to review all the legal documents regarding the Davenport Delta. I would not, you know, and perhaps what may be in order, I mean, we've got, would like to have further dialogue. Mr. Magoon was out of the country for 2 weeks, returned this afternoon. Perhaps we could forward a memo or identifying when the Traffic Commission is going to be having meetings, but I don't, you know, and could forward communication to council regarding it. But I mean, but clearly, Mr. Magoon, Mr. Me, and Chief DeVoe have had more dialogue on how to proceed, and would be coming back with a recommendation on how to proceed. But I have not had a meeting with all 3 of them together as Councilor Canales had with some of the residents. So at this point, I have as many questions to determine how to best proceed on what's in the best interest of this community. So.
I'd like to make a motion.
Pardon me?
I'm ready to make a motion.
We already have a motion on the floor.
Oh, really?
The motion is to send a letter, and it's been seconded.
Well,
We haven't voted on that.
Elaborate further on it.
Go ahead.
I'd like to be really specific. My motion is that in order to keep pressure on Belmont to come up with an alternative design, this town council sends a letter to the state copying the Belmont administration, copying the Watertown Traffic Commission, simply stating our commitment to preserving the Delta.
That was pretty much what was seconded.
Well, I wanted to get all the details in there.
Okay. Any other discussion on a letter? Simply stating, as Councilor Falcoff just pointed out, and I think if we support this, that Attorney Rich will be able to, I think he's listened to the comments enough to keep it brief, to the point, and I think the manager understands that if a letter like this is going to pass, that you know, that we're supportive of the concept of maintaining the open space at the Davenport Delta, as has been mentioned here earlier. We have a motion and a second on the letter. Can we get a roll call, please?
Celia Link,
Yes.
Anthony Columba,
Yes.
Vincent Picciarelli,
Yes.
Kenneth Woodland,
Yes.
Steve Corbett,
Yes.
John Donahue,
Yes.
Susan Falcoff,
Yes.
Angie Canella,
Yes.
Mark Sedaris.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Attorney Rich, if you could
Yes, any.
assist us with writing that letter and then forward it to me so we could just make sure. I'd like to review it if possible. Glad. Thank you. Any other new business?
We missed,
Pardon me?
I didn't hear Councilor Picciarelli have an opportunity. Oh, you did? Okay.
Any other new business? Seeing none, the next item is communications from the town manager. A request for confirmation of reappointment to the Board of Health. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. As you just indicated, Mr. President, agenda item 9A is communications been forwarded regarding the reappointment to the Board of Health, and pursuant to the provisions of the Watertown Home Rule Charter and the Town Council Ordinance 2007-46 regarding the timing and process of appointments to town boards, commissions, and committee. Tonight, I bring forward a request for reappointment to the Board of Health, which requires council confirmation. The reappointment would be of Dr. Barbara Beck, from 15 Mason Road for a term, a 3-year term, to expire on February 2, 2015. Under the council's rules, Mr. President, members of the council, this request for confirmation of the reappointment would be submitted to the Committee on Human Services for their review and report back to the full council.
So referred.
Okay, two more items. One is, I did want to thank the council for their, Mr. President, for their acknowledgement of the library trustee, Anna Kubara, effort in serving the last 3.5 years. I had the opportunity to speak to Anna prior to her be leaving this month to go to St. Louis, and really always very much enjoyed working with her as a library board of trustee for the 3.5 years. I know leaving with mixed feelings is a grand opportunity to go to the new position in St. Louis, but I also think that the town's library system working as with Anna working as a library board of trustee was well served, and I very much appreciate her efforts, and I thank the council for their opportunity for doing it. As you all know, that Anna made it a habit, and perhaps maybe that's why she's leaving St. Louis, but she did go always to the preliminary budget overviews in the budget reports and sit through all of them. So, and I did want to, in all seriousness, I think the town was very well served by Anna's service on the library board of trustees. And then the other item, Mr. President, just follow up on your comment and other councilors' comments about the agreement we've reached on the extension of the employment agreement to June 30th, 2014, as well as the salary ordinance tonight. My comment would be, as I mentioned before, I look forward to continue working with the Honorable Town Council and building on the progress that we've made in providing the highest level of services to the citizens of this community while utilizing the taxpayers' dollars as efficiently as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Request for information. Any requests for information? Seeing none. Announcements. Any announcements? Councilor Picciarelli and then Councilor Falcoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to update the council and the public to let you know that last Wednesday, January 18th, I testified at the second stakeholder meeting of the Double Pole Subcommittee of the Joint Committee on Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy. And the House was seeking, the State House was seeking input from municipalities about problems with double poles. And I basically made 3 points. The first was that they need to give the municipalities the tools we need to work with the utility companies to solve the problems, including giving us access to the data in the PLM on a timely basis, and by mandating attendance by the utility companies at coordination meetings held at the utilities. The second point is they need to pass a financial penalty to be used if cooperation breaks down and promises by the utility companies are not kept, and the municipality should have the ability to assess this fines against the utility pole owners. And thirdly, I asked that they restate that it is the pole owner's sole responsibility under state law to do coordination for moving wires and attachments from the poles. And we've had representatives from Verizon speak here in front of this council and refuse to answer that question. And I think that's symptomatic of what's going on in the whole state, where they're just refusing to acknowledge their responsibility. So I asked that both the Department of Public Utility and the Department of Telecommunications and Cable reiterate that it is their sole responsibility for doing that coordination. So I will keep you updated on further legislation, but thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Councilor Falcoff, I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you to Councilor Picciarelli for his continued service on this issue. Second of all, I had the opportunity today to attend the swearing-in ceremony for our new Senator, Will Brownsberger, and it was a lovely ceremony. And we have a new state senator, and he's looking forward to getting to know Watertown and working with all of us.
Thank you. Councilor Palumbo.
I just wanted to make a few announcements just to remind the public about a couple of things. One, and I think people may know this who've been following the school committee, but tomorrow is a busy day for a number of things, but not tomorrow, Thursday. The 26th, there will be a meeting at 8:30 at the Hosmer Elementary School to discuss the superintendent, the search committee. That's one of two that will take place for a discussion. The next one is in February. Also, the annual Walk for Life is kicking off their, and this is a Watertown Waltham kickoff on Thursday, again, the 26th. The kick will be at the Perkins School for the Blind from 6:30 on. It looks like it's going to be somewhat of a carnival with games, prizes, and so forth. And then I would just like to appreciate the Board of Library Trustees and Ms. Cole and her staff. I had an enjoyable enjoyable Friday night playing miniature golf throughout the library from the first floor up to and through and around. And I was joined with my wife and my daughter, and it was quite a lot of fun. And it was their first try at this fundraiser, and I think that it will be a huge success. Actually, it was a nice thing to do, and I think they raised a little money. And appreciation to the staff who stayed beyond the 5 to 7 and then the 7 to 9 for the golf. And I just want to acknowledge their work.
Thank you. Any other announcements, Councilor Donahue?
Mr. President, thank you. I'd like to announce one more time that the second annual Spelling Bee is this Sunday, the 29th, at the middle school. Last year, there were 65 children in the town that participated. This year, there's 275 kids that participated. In the Watertown Ed Foundation last year was able to grant just over $20,000 in grants to the teachers and the children of this town. So I hope people will participate. I hope the teachers are able to participate. And it's really a great community event, so maybe Bert will go down and spell a couple words for everybody. What do you think, Bert?
Okay. Public forum. Please. Can't hear me either.
This is Alex Liazos, and the first thing I want to say is that I'm only speaking for myself. I used to be on the Commission on Disability for 20 years, but after 20 years, it was time to move on. So that's the first. The second thing is I want to thank the two councilors, especially Mr. Woodland, that I didn't know you could speak for this, for speaking sensibly. He made the most obvious points. This is a public safety issue, and all we hear from the council is empty words, education. I'd like to see that. I'd like to come back in a year and see what you've done, since you said you're not going to vote for the law, but you're going to be for education. I'll bet all my money that you'll do very little, if anything. And that's an embarrassing thing. Now, I heard all of you say time and again that we have 3 laws which are not enforced about snow ordinance. That's embarrassing. Aren't you embarrassed that you're not enforcing the laws that the council passed? Now, I want to talk about the traffic laws and speed laws. All of us know that most people who speed don't get tickets. I would like to get rid of those laws since they're not enforced most of the time. We keep them. And some people get the speeding tickets. It's a safety issue. This thing that we're not going to have a law unless it's enforced all the time is embarrassing. So I don't know where to go next with this. We'll be here next year saying the same thing. And I know you're not going to do anything. I used to be on the council, and that's part of the reason I left. We weren't doing any serious issues. This is a safety issue. It's not just people on disability. It's not older people, and I am 70. It's people who have carriages. It's people, young people, all kinds of people. The most serious health issue for elderly people is broken bones. That's what gets most old people to get really sick. And you're not doing anything to help people not fall down on sidewalks. I just think it's embarrassing that, you cite and well cite all the difficulties in enforcing the law, but that's not a reason not to pass a law and try to enforce part of it, to do something. If I have the time, I don't. I will go around taking pictures of the town itself, not plowing its sidewalks. A year ago, I had to call the town council, your office, Mr. Manager, to remind you that the whole sidewalk on 30 Common Street, behind the city center, was completely covered with 2 feet of snow. The town this town does not have a commitment to clear sidewalks, and that's what's lacking. And you did nothing tonight to enhance that.
Any other person wish to be heard in public forum? Seeing none, before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I'd like the council to please rise for a moment of silence in memory of Councilor Link's mother, who passed away last week. And I'd appreciate that. Can I get a motion to adjourn? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.